So recently we did a video about SLI with our MSI Gaming X Trio cards, two 2080 Ti SLI cards with custom PCBs and an air conditioning hooked up to it, and we took 3 world records while we wait for the real overclockers to get their LN2 setups and their cards up and running. But we're gonna go ahead and show what us regular guys are able to get our hands on and how far our custom PCBs can actually go. We did that with MSI. Now we're gonna take a look at the ASUS Strix cards, a very popular brand that most people are familiar with. So we're gonna see what the thermals are like, what the overclocking is like, the acoustics, and of course, see what kind of single card scores we get. So with that, let's unbox it. Not this one, this one didn't come in a box, but that one did. So we're gonna open that one. Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN, a company I'm very passionate about and have been using for several years. Now, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. It keeps your data online encrypted and secure. Now, you wouldn't send an important package like this RTX graphics card in a clear box, would you? Heck no, because it's guaranteed to not make it where you want it to go, or at least everyone's gonna know what it is on the way. The same can be said for your data. Now, NordVPN not only works on your desktop browsers and of course your desktop, but they also have mobile apps to keep your devices like your phones and your tablets secure while you are on the go. NordVPN has thousands of servers in over 61 different countries, meaning regardless of where you are, you can start taking your internet security seriously today. And you can save 66% off a 2-year membership by heading to nordvpn.com/Jayztwocents and using Jayztwocents offer code at checkout, or you can just click the link in the description below. I appreciate this box though, because it's a more standard size box where some of the other guys have come out with like the biggest boxes they could. I think for that shelf presence, when you're in Micro Center looking around, you're like, that one's big, that one got my attention. That's what she said. So here's what you get right here. Nice soft foam, an installation. So all your drivers and stuff right here, right? A CD. Why guys, come on, thumb drives are cheap enough. Just don't even include anything. Velcro strap, a card, nothing under the card. Okay, so no support bracket or anything like that, which the previous Strix models came with. So I guess we won't be testing sag though, because we're using my open air test bench on this. All right, so here it is, the Strix 2080 Ti with its nice brushed back plates. There we go, that has been handled now. It is a dual BIOS card, but the only thing that really changes with the BIOS switch is the fan curve. It doesn't change things like the power limit, it doesn't increase the power limit, it doesn't increase the voltage, it's just a fan curve thing. Which I guess makes it kind of nice if for some reason you had to reflash the BIOS or something corrupts, you have another BIOS ready to go. But I've never really had that happen before. I've only had BIOS corrupt because I corrupted them by trying to flash them with something custom, but that's besides the point. We have this new button right here. This is a power LED on-off button. So you can long press that to turn the lights on or off quickly without having to load up, I guess, your ASUS Tweak software, which is kind of interesting because I mean, most people have a case. It's not like you can just reach in and turn it on and off. You take your side panel off. So we got 3 fans, just like the previous Strix card. These are high static pressure fans though. You can see how it's not just blades, it actually has a ring around the outside of the blades that connect all of the blades so the air can't splash off the side. It gets forced through the blade, down through the fan, into the heatsink. Now you can see that the heatsink runs the full length of the card. The only gap we have right here is in the middle fan where you can see where the heat pipes actually are. Other than that, there is a very major use of finery. That's what we're gonna dub. We're gonna dub it finery. It's called finery. But I can see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vapor chamber heat pipes in this. They also stuck with the stock dual 8-pin PCI Express power connector where you can, the previous card we looked at, the MSI Trio, had 2 8-pins and a 6-pin. So I'm curious to see what this does in terms of power draw and what the power limit is on this, because it does look like we're sticking with the stock, at least current on this. In typical Strix fashion, we also have an RGB header on the back. Okay, this is really interesting actually. So this is a 2080, and I think this might be an engineering sample. Like I said, it didn't come with a box or anything. The 2080, as you can see, has the RGB header and 2 fan headers. That way you could actually connect things like your intake fans on your case or something to the card. That way when the card would ramp up and pull more fan RPM, it would also increase your case fans to supply as much air to the card as it needs. Interestingly enough though, the 2080 Ti does not have that. You can actually see where they would be, but they're blank. So that's really curious. I wonder why they did that. And I will say that the 2080 is also running a dual 8-pin and not the 8-pin and 6-pin. So yeah, okay. So as you can see with the heatsink though, it's very thick. This is a 2.5, maybe a 2.75 slot card. This is the power delivery or the VRM. So you can see there are heat pads on that, connecting it directly to the fin stack. I don't think there's a heat pipe going through there, not that I can see. And then of course you can see that all of your RAM chips are touching the cooler as well, and obviously the die itself. So let's go ahead and get this on the test bench and see exactly what kind of results we get with this. I'm curious to see if we can't go higher than around the 2100 mark, which seems to be kind of a hard wall for many cards, at least maintaining that core speed, because as we showed in our original Founders Edition review, power limit has been the limit on how far these cards can go. So the Strix card now has been running for, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. Yes, it is in an open air test bench. Once again, I say this in every video, we test open air, that way we know what the cooler's limits are, not what the case is interfering with. So your results will vary. Now, we are running the P mode, or the performance mode, on the BIOS switch, which is just a little bit more aggressive fan curve because it's an overclocking card. We also are running an OC mode in ASUS software, which is the OC Tweak 2. So yeah, I also want to show what this LED button does right here. So you see how the LEDs are just sort of glowing red because that's their color, I guess. If you hold it, you can see that the lights turn off. And then if you push it again, the lights turn back on. I mean, it's a neat thing, but are you going to take your side panel off every time you want to push that? No, probably not. All right, so let's see where our temperatures and stuff have balanced out. Now we're using 1440p max settings on Heaven because although this is an older benchmark, Heaven still puts a lot of heat into the system. We use it to test our temperatures. And I've also found that Heaven is some of the most, at least personally for me, Heaven has been some of the most picky when it comes to overclocks. Looks like we've been sitting and bouncing around the 1860 to 1845 range. Right now it's at 1890. So that's kind of our high and low. We did ramp all the way up to 1980 when it first started, but of course that's when the temperatures were nice and cool. And now because we're in OC mode, the Strix has automatically a +10 on the power limit. So it's actually at +110. Now if we take a look too at our core GPU boost, it only adds +15, and then the memory and stuff all stays the same. So what we're gonna do right now is we are gonna go ahead and max out this slider to 125. We're gonna hit apply on that, and we're gonna see what happens to our core clock. You can see immediately jumped up into the 1920, 1930. It's at 1905 right now. Back up to 1920, and I'm gonna give it a little bit more fan speed too, I think. So the settings I kind of landed on is +155 on the core, +0 on the voltage. We know this slider is questionable at what it really does. I mean, they say voltage overhead, but it didn't change at all in my testing when I tested it. +900, it says +1800, it's really +900 on the memory. Remember, it's 900 times 2 because double data rate. ASUS just shows it in the actual effective frequency. Fans are at 100. I didn't notice any power draw changes by dropping these, so these fans are fairly efficient. They're probably not pulling enough wattage to make any difference to the total TDP in this, because this is like 330 watts, I think, when it's fully overclocked to the +125 or +25 for a 125 power limit. And everything else is just kind of left external fan speed. So this is where you would actually control the external fans if it had any. It seems to think that there's fan headers on the card which don't actually exist, so interesting. You can see now we're sitting around 2040, 2010, it's bouncing around. It did spike to 2115 for a minute. That's where it would go to if we weren't hitting power limit. But unfortunately, as you can see down here, as is the RTX 2080 standard, we are just hitting the power wall before we ever hit our core limit. So that's a little bit unfortunate. And then our GPU temperature right now is sitting in the mid 50s, 55, 56. Because the fans are at 100%. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna go ahead and compare this in 3D Mark TimeSpy Extreme. So the 7554, that was with my MSI card, and that beat my previous 7507. So that was what I was kind of comparing to with the ASUS card. But unfortunately, after several tests, we just weren't able to get the core speeds as high. So the first test was a 7368. Adjusted settings a little bit, got it up to a 7429. Then the last test I ran, we got a 7447, and then past that, we just kept crashing and crashing. Now this comes down obviously all the way to Silicon Lottery. And this is performing much better than even the Founders Edition card that we were given, because that card was hitting power limits even sooner. So let's go and have some final thoughts about the Strix card. All right, so the ASUS Strix is pretty much giving you what you would expect. A card that is giving you better cooling, well, not so much better acoustics, to be honest. The fans on this, I found, once you go to around the 80% or above, they sound very choppy, is the best way to describe it. So the card is sitting here right now at its default fan curve, and the noises you're actually hearing are like the VRM fans on the motherboard and the radiator fans. You can't actually hear the GPU. But as soon as we turn the fans to 100%, you'll see what I'm talking about when I say they have a little bit of a choppiness to them. Instead of being a real consistent whoosh, it's kind of a, at least that's what I hear. Whether the mic hears it, I don't know. So it becomes one of those things where when it comes, this is gonna be just like Pascal. The card that you should buy, quite honestly, is going to depend on the aesthetics. These are all gonna probably perform very, very close to each other because they're all gonna hit the same power limit. And when someone does come out with one that just pushes that power limit to the extreme, you're just gonna hit core limit right above where the power limit was. That's been our experience so far anyway. Any crash that we've experienced on any of our RTX cards has been specifically when it kind of kicks up to that high number for a split second before power limit was a problem. That's where the crash happened every single time. But what I love about the Strix cards is they are very minimalistic. Black IO shield right here, black cooler, black fans, black everything, black PCB, allowing you to, with the RGB included on the, the lighting software and being addressable RGB in here, you can set it to whatever color you want or just leave the modes that are on there. Past that, guys, tell me what you guys think. So, I mean, ASUS is a brand that has been around for a long time. They've definitely set the bar high with their custom designs, and this one is no exception. Although it didn't take the leaderboard for our studio here, that's probably coming down just to silicon laddery. But that just comes down to the silicon lottery. So guys, sound off in the comments below. Tell me what card you're interested in us taking a look at around here. We've got a few more that are still making their way in. Custom PCBs are still being designed by many of the AIBs. And obviously we'll be taking a look at them as we always do every time there's a new graphics card. So I'm gonna go, guys. Thanks for watching this review of the, very high level quick review of the GeForce RTX 2080 Ti Strix from ASUS. And as always, we will see you guys in the next one. Allergies. Way to burn up tape. Do you know how much money it costs per minute to run production around here?
Okay, wait, hold on, let me rewind it.
It's just something about the way new electronics smell.
It's probably cancer.
I don't care.